If you dare drink it, I'll have your entire clan buried with you." The moment he finished speaking, I lifted the poisoned wine and downed it in one gulp. "Go on, brother." "That's not what I meant," I cursed him out.
Coward.
The next day, Prince Pingyang, mortified and furious, kicked me out of the house. My brother can take on 6 people by himself. My brother can kill 8 all by himself. Squatting in the shade by the roadside, I ran into 2 kids trying to outdo each other. Interested, I sidled over and added in a low voice, "My brother dares to wipe out his own whole clan." Thanks to my brother's heroic deeds, I won 2 sugar figurines. So it wasn't completely useless. The poisoned wine was real, a gift from the emperor. No cure. So now I was eating sugar figurines while coughing up blood. It was black. The candy vendor burst into tears, begging me to stop eating. Thinking back, I regret it a little. If I hadn't refused the marriage on impulse, maybe I wouldn't have had to drink that cup. If I could do it over, forget marrying the king of Nanjiang. I'd marry the king of Nanjiang's turtle too. At least I'd live to 18. I actually had a terminal illness to begin with. I didn't have long. Coughing up blood was routine. I could do it with my lips pressed together, upside down, while dancing, while flirting, while coughing blood. "Hey, beauty, you look just like my future husband." Before the other person could even curse me out, I spat another mouthful of blood. My vision went black, and I collapsed. Huh. Flirt and faint. A new strategy? When I woke again, I felt wonderful, clear-headed, refreshed. At some point, my clothes had been changed into a light lilac dress, simple and easy to move in. A faint medicinal scent filled the empty room. I hopped out of bed and headed outside. Beyond the door was a quiet bamboo grove. Past the bamboo, mist rose in soft sheets. Someone was in the hot spring with his back to me. I couldn't make him out clearly. "Who's there?" Before I could get close, he snapped coldly. With a flick of his arm, a blade of water shot toward me. I yelped and dropped into a squat. It struck the tree beside me, the force breaking, and the hot water splashed over my head. I was drenched. Was that really necessary? I wiped my face, furious. The man's eyebrows were long, sweeping into his temples, finer than those of people from the Central Plains. The tails tilted upward, sharp and severe, stripping away any hint of softness. His eyes were deep-set, his irises pale like fine glass. A high nose bridge. When he looked up, his gaze was like a thin knife tip dipped in honey, sweet and deadly at once, with a poisonous, shadowed menace. Now his thin lips parted in a mock. "I can't stand you people from the Central Plains with your koi. Why are you wearing clothes in the bath?" The beauty wasn't from the Central Plains. Realizing that, I fell silent. A strange, rising sense of faded regret surged inside me. Clinging to the hope it couldn't be that perfect a coincidence, I chose my words and asked carefully, "You're so skilled in Nanjiang, have you ever taken a throne for yourself?" The beauty curled his lips. His smile turned faintly cruel as he enunciated each word. "Who gave you the nerve to mock me?" "No, wait, let me explain." That very day I was stripped of my chance to massage the beauty's back and sent to stand night watch at the door instead. Not a king, then not a king. Why so quick to anger? I stared dead-eyed at my coworker, a wolfhound that did nothing but chew bones and bite. The prettier the man, the more ruthless he was. It checked out. Clinging to the belief that beautiful people must be kind, and remembering he'd saved me from the poison, I grinned and snuck back into the room. How could a beauty bear to let a delicate girl like me freeze outside? He was clearly cold on the outside, warm on the inside. Hard mouth, soft heart. A knife for a tongue, tofu for a heart. Harsh words up front, but inside he was surely weeping for my fragile body, unable to sleep. Get out. Sure. I had gone from the treasured daughter of Prince Pingyang's residence to a night watch guard for a Nanjiang beauty. Quite a fall. But today I finally learned the beauty's name, Alfonso. He also had a Central Plains name, Julian Pei. A lovely name. I held a big bowl and swallowed the last bite of disgusting rice mixed with green vegetable soup. Julian Pei was handsome, but his taste in cooks was terrible. I'd been eating for 3 days. Everything tasted the same. Ah, my pure, clueless, kind-hearted idiot of a beautiful wife. You're staying here to repay a life debt. If you won't work properly, why do you keep staring at me? Julian Pei didn't look up. His voice was soft and slow, like wild mint by a mountain stream, laced with cool mist. It hollowed out my chest with a sudden chill. Yet when he deliberately lowered it, it became a lover's whisper, a demon's lure. He could steal your soul, then tilt his head and smile innocently. What does that have to do with me? I want you to look back at me. He finally lifted his eyes. The corner of his lips rose. He was clearly the type with a mind like polished gears, yet in those eyes was a contradictory innocence. Aggressive, naive, and pure. You're so blunt, you don't seem like someone from the Central Plains. You're more like a Nanjian girl. Of course I'm not from the Central Plains. Oh. Then what are you? I'm yours. Julian Pei froze. Julian Pei never hid that he was from Nanjiang. He usually tied a thin braid at the back of his head and fastened it low with a silver crown, lazy, with a different kind of charm. Unlike most people of the Central Plains, so proper and restrained, he was always arrogant and unrestrained. And he had a face that was simply too beautiful. As refined as the finest silk, like a moon carved from piled snow. I clung to the gate and watched him from afar. Ever since the last time I embarrassed Julian Pei, he'd tossed me to an even more distant courtyard entrance. Maria rubbed my head and scolded me like she couldn't stand it. Have some backbone. Is there anything you want to do besides staring at him? Are you going to live your whole life for a man? Millie, you're a brave girl. You shouldn't be trapped beside a man your whole life like the ordinary women of the Central Plains. You should think about what you really want to do. Maria wasn't much older than me, yet she always tried to talk sense into me, patient and earnest, warning me not to be fooled by Julian Pei's looks. But she truly was a good person. She treated me like a real sister. She even gave me a Nanjian name, Millie. It meant a lovable, lucky youngest daughter. There are other things, I muttered, not blinking as I watched Julian Pei eat. Huh? Like what? Maria's voice was gentle enough to melt. She looked at me approvingly. Millie, you should know. Whatever it is, I'll help you. I want to braid his hair. Mary, you just said you'd help. Maria drew her curved blade with a blank face. Help me quit lusting after him, right? The blade slid back into its sheath. I couldn't stand that cook who couldn't tell sugar from salt, so I started holding a book and teaching myself to cook. When Maria heard, she brought me 16 cookbooks the next day. 15 were Nanjiang dishes. I opened the first page. 100 flour fermented snake soup. I set it down gently, peaceful as death, and never turned to the second page. The remaining one was torn and battered. I had no idea where Maria had gotten it. It was Shu cuisine, and every dish needed chili. Luckily, Julian Pei liked spicy food. There was plenty of chili in the kitchen. I thought of the beauty again. Maybe this was love's sweet trouble. With that thought, I tossed another handful of dried chilies into the pot. This time, Maria couldn't bear to refuse my wheedling. The dish made it to Julian Pei's table. That night, the whole residence was lit up, bright as day. Everyone stood on guard. Because Julian Pei, his stomach burning from the heat, said he'd find the cook who tried to assassinate him. Alive or dead. He wanted the body. I wiped my hands on the back of my clothes. Even from a meter away, you could smell the chili on them. I trembled. Why are you so spicy? Julian Pei's smile wasn't a smile. His brows were dark with menace, and he phrased it like a statement. Ah, I said awkwardly, forcing a laugh. Maybe because I'm a spicy girl. Embarrassed by me again, Julian Pei expressionlessly reached toward his waist. I covered my eyes. Isn't it a little fast? My blade isn't even out of its sheath. Why are you crying? I'm sorry, beauty. I lowered my hands. My eyes were red. Tears streamed down my face. Really, it's just too spicy. Maria soaked a handkerchief in cold water, gently wiped my face, then pressed it over my eyes. When I opened them again, it was much better. At least I wasn't streaming tears anymore. Why are his lips so red? I want to kiss them. If you dare come closer, Julian Pei said, his index finger pressing against my forehead. His voice was light, slow, and cold, threaded with threat. I'll cut off your head. It's not like it's useful. I nodded. Then, the moment he relaxed, I clung to the table and leaned in, bold with lust. My lips met something icy, a thin leaf silver dart, its point sharp with killing intent. Sorry, brother. I froze. I tried to pull back, but Julian Pei yanked me into his arms and used that blade to trace my eyebrow line, slow and careful. Seeing my fear, he actually laughed, sounding pleased. Scared? The dart's tip pressed at the tail of my brow. I didn't dare move, I only dared to make a small sound. Then, The tip traveled, inch by inch, to my lips. Julian Pei's eyes were heavy. This close, he was even more bewitching. His voice was a lover's whisper, intimate, lingering. "Do you still want a kiss?" "I do." Better to die under peonies and still be charming as a ghost. The instant I spoke, the handle tapped my lips. I shrank back in fright. Julian Pei held the silver dart between two fingers. He paused for a beat, then broke into laughter, revealing a small tiger tooth. His chest trembled. He was always reckless. Even his laughter held a wildness unlike men of the Central Plains. "Good girl." Julian Pei tossed the dart aside. "Then don't call me brother anymore. Call me Big Brother." Recently, Maria had gone out with Julian Pei to handle business. She told another older sister, Nina, to look after me. When Nina asked me for the 8th time today what I wanted for dinner, I smiled and flipped her off, then shut the door. When do I finally get to eat spicy chicken? On the 7th day after my death. Nina wasn't as attentive as Maria, but she was lively. She kept telling me about Nanjiang customs. She was adorable. After she left, I pressed a handkerchief tightly to my mouth and coughed up blood. This poison came with me from the womb. I was born weak. Every month I had to take medicine from a prescription left by a traveling doctor 10 years ago. Only then could I live like an ordinary person. But I couldn't go back to Prince Pingjian's residence. I put on a veiled hat and went out for a walk with Nina. There were too many people. Nina was lively, and everything felt new to me. I looked around, and just like that, we got separated. "Nina, Nina!" I walked and searched. Suddenly, a gust of wind sent paper spiraling down. My veil lifted. I caught one piece. It was funeral money. What a pity. Lady Shiguang was only 15, an old man sighed as he packed up his stall. We were strangers, yet the melancholy in his words felt almost physical. It slammed into my heart and tightened my chest. Lady Shiguang, doomed to die young, had passed away on the 2nd day after the emperor granted her marriage. How pitiful. I opened my hand, and the paper money flew back into the air. This was for the dead Lady Shiguang. And I was no longer Lady Shiguang. The sky darkened quickly. Black clouds rolled in. The old man was gone, his stall already packed away. Fat raindrops hammered my veiled hat. For a moment, I truly didn't know where to hide. I could only run blindly with the crowd as we were all caught in the rain. In Chang'an, when it rained, it came fast and vicious. In no time, it was a downpour, like beans pouring from the sky. Wind drove the rain into the crowd, blurring everyone's vision. In the chaos, my veiled hat was ripped away by the wind and the jostling bodies. The hair Nina had tied for me came loose, too. Soaked through, I uselessly raised an arm over my forehead when I suddenly heard a shout. "Millie!" Mary's voice. Before I could turn, my body went light. I cried out. After a brief, weightless moment, someone clamped an arm around my waist and hauled me onto a horse. A heavy cloak dropped over my head, cutting off wind and rain. In the darkness, all I could hear was the powerful heartbeat in the chest pressed to my ear. "Jul." I was about to ask if it was Julian Pei, but I couldn't hold it back. I spat another mouthful of hot blood, soaking into his collar. It felt like all my strength was draining away. Heat, then cold. As my consciousness slipped, I finally heard that familiar, reassuring scoff. "Don't be afraid, your big brother's here." I woke with a throbbing headache. Every bone in my body screamed with pain. Tears burst out of me all at once. "Does it hurt?" Julian Pei touched my forehead. Like a mother from childhood, he brushed the damp strands off my brow and swept them back toward my hairline. I took deep breaths to ease the pain. I struggled to open my arms, wanting him to hold me. He didn't move, and I couldn't stop the tears again. Finally, Julian Pei reached out with a long arm and pulled me in. I got what I wanted and sank into his embrace. After a while, I managed in a hoarse voice, "It's better now. This illness can't touch cold water. Today, the chill didn't sink too deep into your bones. You can still lie here and cling to me. If it had gone deeper, Maria would be the one hugging your gravestone and crying." I hurt too much to argue. I curled closer and nodded weakly. "Maria," he tucked the blanket around me, leaving only one arm exposed. "Put the medicine on her." Yes. The cool ointment touched my skin. In an instant, most of the pain eased. "If you had medicine, why didn't you apply it earlier?" Julian Pei chuckled, casual as if it didn't matter. "You needed to learn." So ruthless. I buried my face in the hollow of his neck, breathing in his clean, pleasant scent. A beauty is always cold-hearted, an actor won't play the devoted lover. That earned another soft laugh. If I'm so cold-hearted, why are you still holding on to me and refusing to let go? The pain had eased a lot. I slid both hands around his neck and quietly started undoing his braid, replying lazily, "Because you're ruthless in exactly the way I like." The third time I'd embarrassed Julian Pei, he laughed and covered my mouth. "You're the most interesting girl from the Central Plains I've ever met." For a moment, I didn't know whether to remind him that in the Central Plains, he hadn't met even 10 women total, including the kitchen auntie, the old woman who delivered vegetables, and that old woman's granddaughter who had just learned to walk. I chewed on an osmanthus cake, crouched behind a screen with my heart in my throat, eavesdropping. Outside were Julian Pei and the Ninth Prince. Luckily, the screen hid me. They couldn't see me. I'd heard my brother mention it before. In recent years, the emperor's health had worsened. But the crown prince kept making mistakes. His position was shaky. Several princes were quietly plotting to seize the throne, and the most likely one was the Ninth Prince. The Ninth Prince was the emperor's favorite son, born to consort Chen. In both strategy and breadth of mind, he far surpassed the crown prince. But his mother had once been a maid. Her status was low. Naturally, she could not compare to the empress, who had given birth to the legitimate heir. So now, had the fight for the throne already begun? "Who's there?" someone snapped. I jolted. Before I could react, a corner of dark clothing drifted into view. Julian Pei curled his lips. His eyes narrowed, sending out a dangerous warning. The gloom between his brows hadn't faded yet. He looked just as terrifying as the first time I'd seen him. In his hand, he toyed with that thin-leaf silver dart I knew all too well. I went rigid, as if I'd been dropped into an ice pit. This wasn't our usual fooling around. This time, I'd stumbled into their plan to force the emperor's hand and seize the throne. I was done for. "Brother Julian?" the Ninth Prince said. Julian Pei didn't answer for a long moment. The Ninth Prince seemed to rise to take a look. If he recognized my face, if he saw that Prince Pingyang's younger sister was alive and well, then my brother. At a loss, I glanced toward the screen. I could only make out the Ninth Prince's vague outline. Then I looked back at Julian Pei, unreadable. I didn't care if I died, but I couldn't drag my brother down with me. My heart pounded. My throat began to taste of blood again. A tear slipped down. Julian Pei seemed to sigh. He bent and took the half-piece of osmanthus cake from between my fingers with his teeth. His thin lips brushed my fingertips lightly, almost by accident. I jerked back as if stung. "It's nothing," he said, swallowing. That impossibly beautiful face was right in front of mine. He stared straight at me. "She's mine." Good. The Ninth Prince didn't suspect a thing and sat back down. Julian Pei straightened. With his thumb, he wiped away the tear at the corner of my eye. He laughed softly. "What are you scared of? Would your big brother let anyone bully you?" That sudden, violent heartbeat in my chest, maybe that was what people meant by falling in love at first shock. Alfonso was the only disciple of Nanjiang's great shaman physician. Gifted and sharp, he had mastered medicine. But because he'd tested poisons on himself since childhood, his sense of taste had grown painfully dull. That was why he especially loved food that was spicy, food that stung, that woke him up. His stomach, however, was in terrible shape. I always waited by the main gate for him to come back, then brought him a bowl of plain-looking porridge. But tonight, he didn't return. I pulled my cloak tighter and started humming. For the pain of clinging to love, Nina. For the wounds of clinging to hate. "Millie," Nina finally said, carefully choosing her words, "could you not sing that when it's your 7th day after death?" "No need, right? No need to kill me, right? Why the 7th day after death?" "Because every time I ask you, you tell me to wait until your 7th day. For spicy chicken, and for hibiscus cake too." Nina's big eyes were sincere and clear. 7th day was a saying from the Central Plains. As a native of Nanjiang, Nina didn't know what it meant. "I really hope we can get to your sev." "No, Nina, I can shut up right now." At 3/4 past midnight, Julian Pei still hadn't returned. "That firework looks like the kind we use in Nanjiang." Nina scratched her head and looked toward the southwestern sky. "Huh? Is it your New Year today?" I asked, puzzled and bold. "No," Nina said, trying to remember. "The master said that if we ran into danger, We should use that to make contact. Oh, right. Take everyone and go find him, now. The faint worry finally sharpened into panic and swept over me like a tide. I stood up so fast my head swam. Everyone. Nina nodded and ran a few steps, then stopped. She turned back. But the master told me to protect you. I can't just go. I pressed my fingers to my brow, furious. If he dies, do you think I can live alone? Nina rushed inside. Before long, she'd gathered everyone at the gate. Millie, don't go out. Stay home and wait, okay? Nina simply couldn't stop worrying about me. I nodded, shoved her out the door, and urged her to hurry. When they vanished into the night, I clenched my hands so hard my nails bit into my palms. How could I just sit here and do nothing? Half a stick of incense later, I climbed onto the last horse in the stable. Wobbling in the saddle, I headed for Ninth Prince's manor. Don't touch him. I jumped down and staggered as I picked up a blood-smeared blade. It was so heavy my hand shook. I recognized him. General Wang, the Crown Prince's loyal dog. Right now he was pointing his sword at Julian Pai. Julian Pai was clearly badly injured, half kneeling on the ground, chest heaving. When he saw me, he froze in shock. Who are you? I moved closer slowly. Only when I drew near did I realize Julian Pai had a cliff behind him. Below it, the water churned violently. Just hearing it made my heart seize. Who told you to come? Julian Pai's voice was hoarse and urgent. It was the first time I'd ever heard him sound like that. I had already edged close to them. I answered with righteous confidence. I came to protect you. Julian Pai let out a short, furious laugh and muttered a curse, probably a Nanjiang speech. I didn't catch it. You don't look like someone from Nanjiang. General Wang studied me. I look like your mother. My veil had been lost along the way. But the night was deep and he didn't know me well. He didn't recognize me. What a pair of stubborn trash, he snarled, face twisted. Fine. I'll send you both on your way. He raised his sword to stab. Julian Pai swung his blade and chopped it clean off. 3 silver darts struck without warning, sinking into General Wang's flesh. He spat blood, then hurled the broken sword. Julian Pai stumbled back from the blow. In that split second, I lunged to grab him, but all I caught was a corner of his clothes, tearing it away. My throat felt stuffed with cotton. For a moment, my mind went blank. No, he was so strong. Julian Pai! Alfonso. No answer. General Wang collapsed to the ground, laughing wildly. I crawled to the cliff's edge. Rage and grief surged together, and I spat out a mouthful of blood. He's dead. My whole body began to tremble. I wanted to cry, but nothing came. I seized the long blade and drove it into his chest. The disgusting laughter stopped at once. The roar of the water surged below. After killing him, I lifted my skirt. Without a second's hesitation, I leapt from the high cliff. I will protect you, no matter where, no matter life or death. When I woke again, I was draped over Julian Pai's back. His clothes were in tatters. He was covered in wounds, too many to count. My eyes burned hot. He jolted me upward with a shift of his back, and only then did I truly understand. We were alive. What are you touching? Julian Pai turned his head and pressed his cheek to mine. I knew he was checking whether I had a fever, and yet it somehow felt like a small beast finally trusting someone with all its heart. I said solemnly, I'm checking if you're hurt. Are you done? Not yet. I wriggled higher. My arms are a bit short, I can't reach your abs. For once, Julian Pai didn't threaten me with his darts. Instead, he changed the subject. Aren't you afraid of death? Of course I am. Anyone who isn't is an idiot. Then why did you jump? Because I'm even more afraid my good brother would die. If you die, I won't live either. I smoothed his messy little braids. His hairpiece was long gone. With his hair loose, he looked even less like a man from the Central Plains, wild and beautiful. I'm just a sweet, adorable little fool of a beauty, blinded by love. I wiped away tears that weren't there and kept laying it on thick. As long as I can stay by your side, nameless and unclaimed, giving quietly unwilling. If I can't get your heart, I'll get your body. After a long time, just when I thought I'd embarrassed him into silence as usual, Julian Pai suddenly chuckled. The tail end of that sound was dangerously seductive. It made my heart itch like I wanted to pounce and kiss him. Then he lowered his voice, gentle and indulgent in a way that made my face heat. My body is yours, he said. My heart is yours too. I went speechless, my heartbeat racing. If you kiss me once, he added, even my life is yours. Oh no, the deer in my chest was about to smash itself to death. Back home, I came down with a high fever, just as expected. My head swam in fog. I don't know who came to see me or who tucked the blanket around me at my bedside. In that haze, I kept dreaming of the past. Come to think of it, I had once been a lady of rank. The truly noble kind. And with my frail health, I lived with people waiting on me hand and foot. My brother adored me, his only remaining sister. He spoiled me into being delicate, so delicate I didn't fit in with a family forged on the battlefield. But an imperial command could not be disobeyed, and behind him stood an entire clan. I didn't want to marry the king of Nanjian, but I couldn't be selfish and drag my family down with me. So I took poison. I left Prince Pingyang's residence willingly. I didn't dare tell my brother I was still alive. And so, I accepted calmly that I was destined for a lonely second half of life. I used to think death didn't matter. When I was 10, a physician said I wouldn't live past 18. Others were born fearing death. I'd known my fate for years. Later, after I met Julian Pei, I still thought death didn't matter. At least I'd known him. I would have no regrets. If risking my life could do something for him, I would accept it gladly. But after that, eating with him, hearing him call my name softly, seeing him smile at me, I suddenly thought it would be nice to stay with him a little longer. Just one more day of brushing his hair. I had just learned a new way to braid it. Just a few more looks at him. People always want more and more. No one is an exception. Ever since Julian Pei struck back last time, my corny love lines had slowly lost room to grow. I drank the last mouthful of medicine. Brother, where are you from? I'm from your heart. Julian Pei popped a candied fruit into my mouth, answering smoothly. No, you're my... Wait, what? Aren't you from Nanjian? You know that and you still ask? For a moment, I had nothing to say. Now I couldn't out-cheese him at all. You're so cheesy now. You're nothing like the cold, beautiful man you were at the start. Julian Pei glanced at me with a half-smile. His thumb brushed the medicine stain at the corner of my lips. Not too hard, not too light. His voice slowed. Say something that makes me unhappy again, and your head will be cut off. I immediately pulled the blanket over my mouth and blinked obediently to show I understood. Where are you going? The 9th prince is waiting in the study to discuss things. The 9th prince? Julian Pei, you really aren't the king of Nanjian? At those words, Julian Pei's gaze turned instantly cold. His crow-dark lashes lowered slightly, casting a small shadow beneath his eyes, like a venomous snake sliding out of dense woods, tongue bright red. I swallowed, clutching the quilt, suddenly regretting what I'd said. After a long time, he let out a soft laugh and broke the silence. He bent toward me and looked straight into my eyes. One hand slid to the back of my neck. His palm was icy. I shivered. For now, he said, pinching the soft flesh at my nape, his voice light. The cruelty in his words wasn't hidden at all. Not yet. I wasn't afraid of him, but the violence between his brows made my heart pound. What did for now, not yet mean? Later? Would he be? Let that old thing live a few more days. He tucked the blanket corner around me and straightened. The murderous aura from a moment ago vanished, as if I'd imagined it. In a few days, I'll take you to Nanjiang. Okay. I never thought I would see my brother again, Prince Pingyang, Ethan Gu. I once believed that in this life I would never see my family again. It felt like a lifetime ago. Claire, he called me just as he used to. Do you know who you're with? I nodded. Julian Pei. Alfonso. He is the 14th son of the king of Nanjian. He came to Chang'an this time to join forces with the 9th prince. They want to change the skies over Nanjian, maybe even over Chang'an. After a silence, I nodded again. You also know your brother. Ethan Gu paused, then continued. Prince Pingyang's residence has always been close to the crown prince. Prince Pingyang is a subject. A subject serving the ruler is loyalty. Serving the heir to the throne is what? Claire Gu. Ethan Gu slammed the table in anger. I held my neck stiff and refused to lower my head. In the end, he gave in first. His voice softened. The emperor gave you wine. Do you think I didn't hate it? Didn't resent it? The day you drank that poisoned wine, I wanted to draw my sword. Claire, I just didn't want you mixed up in all this. You barely managed to survive, and I... Brother, I grabbed his hand. When Lady Shuguang died, she had no regrets and no resentment. But Claire Gu is still alive. I was lucky enough to get these extra days. I even fell in love with someone. Even if I die again with him, it's still worth it. Ethan Gu held my hand tight, just like every time from childhood to now. Dry and warm, always giving me strength. You've decided? Yes. Our Claire has grown up. Ethan Gu sighed as if finally letting go and placed a token into my palm. Brother, you don't have to, for me. No, Claire, this time I'm making a choice for Prince Pingyang's residence. You? I rubbed the small jade ring, uncertain. You chose the 9th prince? Yes, if you're a commander who wouldn't want to follow a wise ruler. Ethan Gu let out a short laugh, looking like the bright 17 or 18-year-old he once was. And if I have to choose a side anyway, why wouldn't I stand with my sister? My nose stung. Brother, only an idiot would choose the crown prince, that stupid bastard. He actually impeached me before, saying I was greedy for pleasure. Was I spending money on Miss Peony for pleasure? That was love. On Julian Pei's birthday, it rained hard. I dragged Maria into the kitchen to help. Ethan Gu kept looking around, his face full of heartbreak. I'm Prince Pingyang, a whole Prince Pingyang, and my sister is in here feeding the fire? It's cold. I rolled my eyes and muttered, ignore him. He's sick. Julian Pei didn't like rice. He preferred noodles. In the end, I cooked a pot of dumplings, chili filling. I raised you all these years, and I've never even eaten food you made, Ethan Gu said sourly. You did eat spicy fish slices, braised pork knuckle, and milk custard cake 2 days ago. Nina blinked her big eyes, then added, you even had 2 extra bowls of rice. Maria said you still haven't paid. In the Central Plains, that's called freeloading. Shameless. Ethan Gu snapped. How is a brother-in-law's business freeloading? When he wasn't looking, Nina yanked his money pouch. She flipped out the window and pulled a face back at him. Ethan Gu, furious, slapped the windowsill and jumped out too. But he wasn't as nimble as Nina. He crashed into the frame so hard it shook, nearly coming loose. There's a door to the kitchen. Maria roared in pain. The 2 culprits pretended they hadn't heard. Maria glared at me instead. I comforted her. The windows at Prince Pingyang's residence are this bad too. Night fell quickly. The rain didn't let up. It pattered on the ground and struck the leaves, making the night feel especially quiet. There weren't many people at this birthday feast, but it was lively enough. Nina was clever and full of tricks, and she kept the mood bright. After several rounds of drinking, I served that bowl of chili dumplings to Julian Pei. Nina and the others were already sprawled out, hugging wine jars. Only Ethan Gu remained, bleary-eyed, slumped over the table. He let out a cold laugh and muttered like a child, choke on it. I twisted his arm. It's a good day. Don't make me slap you. Julian Pei picked up a dumpling and bit down. His expression suddenly turned complicated. I went cold with nerves. Didn't he usually handle spice just fine? Ethan Gu rubbed his arm, laughing in gloating delight. But then his smile froze. The thing in that brat's mouth looked familiar. The harder he forced his eyes open to see, the less he could see clearly. In the end, sleep hit him, and he collapsed onto the table, still unwilling. Julian Pei spat out the hard little thing. Seeing it was a jade ring, he lifted a brow and smiled. This is a love token? Relieved, I grinned until my eyes curved. Boldly, I said, it's my bride price. With Prince Pingyang's residence and the Gu family's personal troops as my offer, will you marry me, brother? Julian Pei seemed a little drunk too. He stared at me for a long time without speaking. At last, he gently lifted my hand as if it were priceless. He pressed it to his forehead and said hoarsely, okay, I'll marry you. On a sunny afternoon, I watched Julian Pei and the others ride away at full speed, heading toward Nanjian. He said he had to go back and collect his dowry, and he wanted me to wait for him. My brother asked if I wanted to return to Prince Pingyang's residence. I shook my head. I'd been trapped there too long. Now that my body was doing well, I wanted to travel more. Besides, he'd turned the traveling physician's prescription into portable pills, so I had nothing to worry about. After that, I lived with the little horse Julian Pei gave me. With nowhere to use my braiding skills, I finally set my sights on the horse. My little horse was the prettiest horse in Chang'an. Every day it wore different little braids. We got up early together to train each morning. At night, we took walks by the river. Lately, the horse didn't like grass much. It always seemed listless. I guessed it was like me, missing the best-looking person in the world. But he told me to wait. So I waited. Until one day, Claire Gu, Prince Pingyang's residence, deceived the ruler. What crime is that? And what exactly is your relationship with that Alfonso? Tell the truth. Did Ethan Gu secretly collude with Nanjiang, with you passing messages for him? No. I looked steadily at the richly dressed man across from me. It has nothing to do with my brother. I chose to follow Alfonso on my own. Then what, you want to help him rebel? My brother was right. This man didn't understand love at all. If the throne passed to him, the ancestors would be cursed with rotten luck to have such a ruinous heir. I didn't feel like saying more. I whistled sharply. A dozen black-clad death guards dropped from above. I mounted my little horse, and under their protection, I broke out of the Crown Prince's control. I looked back. The death guards were tangled in battle with the Crown Prince's men. He seemed to want to send more people after me, but he clearly couldn't spare them. The Crown Prince was stupid, but he was still the heir. I tightened my grip on the reins, kicked the horse's belly, and sped toward Prince Pingyang's residence. It looked like Chang'an would no longer hold me. Not long ago, I was the sister of the illustrious Prince Pingyang and Lady Shuguang, personally titled by the current emperor. Now, sitting in a small noodle shop, I was a fugitive under an assumed name. Claire Gu. In the noisy crowd, a kind-faced auntie lifted the lid off the big pot. The scent of noodles rose with a burst of steam. I slurped a mouthful of clear broth noodles. Broad sunlight poured over me. The hot soup warmed my belly, heating me through. A breeze swept past, and the life in front of me felt more beautiful than ever. With Prince Pingyang's help, my thin and helpless escape went exceptionally smoothly. Ethan Gu said he would handle the rest. That same day, I led my little horse and fled Chang'an. I had always trusted him, the youngest war god general in the history of the Shang dynasty. His strategy and ruthlessness were far above those useless officials who only knew how to sit in their posts. Have you heard? Alfonso offended the Grand Elder. My ears pricked up. I tossed a few coins on the table and squeezed into the crowd across the street. I caught a few lines. The Grand Elder said long ago that Alfonso was born inauspicious, blood unblessed by God Ban Luo. A traitor to Nanjiang. Nanjiang's speech mixed with Han. I could roughly make out that they were talking about Julian Pei being framed by some Grand Elder and then defecting from Nanjiang. Someone must have learned he joined forces with the 9th Prince. They couldn't sit still anymore. I pushed my way forward until I finally saw the portrait, now filthy from mud thrown all over it, as expected of my beauty. Even with the paper smeared and ruined, it couldn't hide a face that could drive anyone mad with desire. I tore the portrait down, dusted it off, and clicked my tongue. My taste was impeccable. I didn't expect you to hate him this much. Someone patted my shoulder. I looked up. It was a middle-aged man with dark skin. He gestured for me to go on. Rip it to pieces. No one will scold you. They'll cheer you on. Oh? I smiled gently. Have you torn one up before? Of course, he said proudly. That inauspicious monster's portrait deserves to be trampled under our feet. I kept smiling calmly. Then I grabbed a fistful of dirt and smashed it into his face, exactly as he'd done to my beauty's portrait. It covered that leering expression perfectly. Blanco! Wanch! He jumped and cursed in rage. The crowd erupted. I didn't understand. But it didn't matter. I unfolded Julian Pai's portrait, lifted my chin in a cold, proud sneer and said slowly, one word at a time, "This is my husband." On the first day after shaking off the Central Plains pursuers, I ran straight into Nanjiang's passionate pursuit, worthy of being Alfonso's wife. Leo was a shadow guard who had protected me for a long time. This time, when I came to Nanjiang, Ethan Gu arranged for him to stay with me again. Leo sent word that he would arrive tonight to meet up with us. And anyone who knew me understood this. I was always a beauty who dared to fight fate. But I hadn't expected Nanjiang's passion to be so overwhelming that even a weak woman like me couldn't handle it. So, on a bright, breezy afternoon, I used all my strength to cinch a deep blue waistband tight around Leo's waist. Leo's handsome face turned red. I couldn't tell if he was angry or being strangled. He looked like he wanted to speak but didn't. I panted. Don't tell me you want me to do your hair too. I only know how to braid. Actually, braids are fine, but my brother might cut your head off. It's not that. Leo's expression was complicated. Miss, I'm too tall. Even with a veiled hat, they can tell I'm not you. No need to worry. I was brimming with confidence. Nanjiang people all have bad eyesight. Huh? Think about it. Alfonso is that beautiful. If I were the king of Nanjiang, the day Alfonso was born, I'd step down on the spot and hand him the throne. Anyone who objected, I'd cut off their head and let my beautiful baby kick it like a ball. These Nanjiang people, too, calling him a traitor non-stop. My husband is just too kind to argue with them. But Alfonso is also from Nanjiang. You mean his eyesight is bad too? Leo, I said with a smile. Even if Nanjiang doesn't have many graveyards, there'll still be a place for you to lie down. I was wrong, miss. I had to admit, the guards at the Grand Elder's estate were hard to deal with. What are you doing? The moment I climbed onto the wall, I was caught. The guard pointed a blade at me, eyes ferocious. If I said I'm actually a follower of the Grand Elder, would you believe me? They clearly didn't, because I was soon tossed into a small, dark room. I struggled. How did you figure it out? Did I disguise something wrong? Are my clothes wrong? This is Nanjiang clothing. The guard gave a profound smile. No. Then why? Sharp instinct? Great eyesight? Does your wall come with a lie detector? No. It's simply because it's impossible for anyone to like that old man who makes people get up at 3/4 midnight to guard the house. You might as well say gold fell from the sky. That would at least be God Banluo showing a miracle. When I heard someone land outside the door, I was cutting the rope. By the timing, Ethan Gu should have reached Nanjiang and met up with Leo. Brother? I asked carefully. The person outside snorted, voice cold. I'm not your brother. That voice... My breath stopped. Then the door was kicked open. Julian Pei stood there in neat Nanjiang clothes, smiling in the moonlight. There were still drops of blood on his face. Under the moon, he looked dangerously unreal, like an asura crawling out of hell. Yet his eyes were tender. When his gaze fell on me, it was a softness that struck straight through the heart. He cut the rope. I threw myself into his arms and started fake crying as I complained. Okay, I'll get revenge for you. Julian Pei wiped my tears with his fingertips, gentle and slow. Good, then when we go back, we'll make a plan? No? Julian Pei lowered his lashes. His face was calm, but the cruelty underneath bled through. He said each word clearly, today. The Grand Elder's estate burned in towering flames. People fled through every gate. Maria protected me as we stood at a distance. Nina held a curved blade and guarded the study door. Mary, I thought you'd all been caught by Grand Elder. I came to see what was happening. Of course not, Millie. Then how did Julian Pei offend the Grand Elder? Like this. It really was offensive. I glanced at the Grand Elder's estate, nearly burned to nothing. Millie, you shouldn't have come alone. It's too dangerous. But I can't bring a whole squad of shadow guards to climb a wall, can I? 10 heads popping up over a wall would be way too obvious. Millie, even one head is very obvious. The fire quickly licked up the beams. Julian Pei finally came out of the study, expressionless and grim. His right hand clamped someone by the throat and dragged him along. The man struggled uselessly twice, then went limp. Maria tried to block my view, but Julian Pei's every move was too clear to me. It was as if it had been branded into my heart. Among 10,000 people, I could always find him. He coldly flicked the blood from his hand. His eyes were dark. His whole body carried the unknown danger of deep forest shadows, more unfathomable and more sharply bared. Fresh red blood clung to his pale, long-fingered hand. Even the silver bracelet at his wrist was stained. A cruel, contradictory kind of beauty. Not the same as when he was with me. I had only seen him like this at the beginning. Dark and cold-blooded, powerful and lonely. Maria covered my eyes. My sight fell into darkness, but his outline only grew clearer in my mind. He wasn't happy. Millie. When I came back to myself, I was already clinging to Julian Pei. He froze, startled, wanting to hold me but wary of the blood on his hands. Brother, don't be afraid. I'll protect you. He let out a soft laugh as if my words were sudden and ridiculous. He tried to tease me like usual, but his voice turned hoarse and unsteady. In the end, he only called my name. Claire Gu. Not Millie. Claire Gu. Not the Julian Pei who teased me into calling him brother, and not the Julian Pei who indulgently said, I'll marry you. This was Alfonso, showing me his truest self, wanting me to see him clearly. Yes, I'm Claire Gu. I jumped down and met his eyes. I confirmed my feelings again. I like Alfonso, not a shallow kind of like, the kind where no matter what Alfonso becomes, I'm willing to spend my whole life with him. My Alfonso was afraid his killing would frighten me. So he indulged me again and again and let me go again and again, but it didn't matter, I had still walked toward him. Julian Pei was moved. The corners of his eyes reddened. That hand, prettier than any woman's, covered my eyes gently. In the darkness, his kiss fell on my forehead. That silent vow was more solemn than any words. Hey brother, long time no see. I did my best to greet him properly. Ethan Gu looked at me, then at Julian Pei. If I remember correctly, my sister has legs. Just got off a horse, Julian Pei said. Let her walk. I tightened my arms around Julian Pei's neck. No, I don't have legs, I'm paralyzed. Claire Gu, Ethan Gu cursed furiously. Have you no shame? I covered my ears and rolled my eyes. Julian Pei was the one who soothed him. I couldn't be bothered to listen to their small talk. I jumped down and pulled Nina with me as we ran into the prince's palace. According to what you said, with the 9th prince holding him back in court, you can pretend to surrender. For now, you don't need to worry about Chang'an. Exactly. Ethan Gu raised a brow. The crown prince can't spare the attention right now. He has to guard against the 9th prince forcing the palace. He won't send many people to Nanjing, but we can't underestimate them. Why? I frowned. Because this person trained in martial arts at 5, took a master at 8, went to war at 15. At 16 he rode alone into the enemy ranks and took the commander's head with his sword. He was made a general. He's unfathomable. That sounds familiar. Ethan Gu was always proud. Anyone he praised this sincerely. I thought hard, then asked, who is it? Me. From the crown prince's behavior, I could basically foresee how the fight for the throne would end. While I was on a swing, I got Nina's reply. She was covered in blood. Without a word, she handed me a silver bracelet I knew all too well. Julian Pei wore it on his wrist every day. It was a style made for women, yet it never looked feminine on him. It suited him beautifully. Now it had been wiped clean, but the heavy scent of blood still clung to it. There was also a letter. Clean as well, lying in Nina's palm. I took it. My hand around the bracelet trembled slightly. I didn't know what to say. Deep inside, I felt a calm I had never known. I should have expected this outcome. I unfolded the letter. There were only a few words. He was getting stingier and stingier, just a handful of words, like he was afraid I'd start crying before I even finished reading. I slid the bracelet onto my wrist. So the day finally came. If I could do it over, this morning I would have grabbed him and made him eat one more bowl of porridge I cooked. At least then. Millie, you're being dramatic. Nina looked speechless. Everything went smoothly. The master said he's starving and asked what you're making for dinner. Oh, I wiped away tears of emotion that didn't exist. Braised inkfish, tai-bai duck, and spicy pork knuckle. There's also a pot of soup simmering on the stove. Ethan Gu wants to know if there's spicy chicken. No, the chicken ran away from home. Can't cook it. On the day Julian Pei ascended the throne and presided over the sacrificial rites, I stood among the crowd and watched the ceremony. I was truly happy for him. He smiled at me, just like the first time we met on the street. I'd been bold and reckless, and he'd found it amusing. Ethan Gu only had time to share a single cup of wine with him before hurrying back to Chang'an. I knew a hard fight still lay ahead. 3 days later, Julian Pei also set out for Chang'an. This time, just like every time before, I believed with all my heart they would bring back good news. In the 16th year of Jingjia, the emperor fell gravely ill. The 9th prince, Alexander Ma, ascended the throne and changed the era name to Mingye. In the first year of Mingye, the emperor's sworn younger sister, Claire Gu, was granted the title Princess Deyang and was married off to Alfonso, king of Nanjiang. A perfect match, made in heaven.